War changes people. It tests their courage, their resilience, their belief in what is right. In World War II, more than 1 million African Americans put on the uniform of the United States, many hoping that by fighting for freedom abroad, they could earn respect and equality at home. They left their homes and families, risking their lives for a country that still treated them as second-class citizens. They trained in segregated barracks. They fought in segregated units. They shed blood under the same flag as white soldiers, but when the war ended, they returned to a country that still refused to acknowledge their sacrifice. This is the story of how their fight did not end with the war. It only just began. When America entered World War II in 1941, African Americans were eager to serve, but instead of being welcomed as equals, they were assigned to segregated units, often given the most dangerous and least desirable tasks. They were laborers, cooks, and drivers, while white soldiers led the charge into battle. But some refused to be limited by prejudice. The Tuskegee Airmen, the first black military pilots, trained under grueling conditions, proving that skill and bravery knew no color. They went on to become one of the most successful fighter squadrons in the war, escorting bombers and protecting missions with incredible precision. "We fought 2 wars," they would later say, one against the enemy overseas and one against racism at home. For many black soldiers, the contrast was startling. In places like France and Britain, they were treated with respect, able to enter restaurants, dance halls, and public spaces alongside white citizens. They experienced, for the first time, what true equality felt like. But when they returned home, their reality came crashing down. America had not changed. The South was still deeply segregated. Many veterans, even those who had fought bravely, were denied basic rights, refused service at restaurants, denied jobs, and in some cases, violently attacked for simply wearing their military uniforms in public. It was time for a new fight. The Double B campaign, victory abroad, victory at home, became a rallying cry. African Americans demanded that the same principles of democracy they had defended overseas be upheld in their own country. The experiences of war had changed them. African American soldiers were no longer willing to accept second-class citizenship. They had fought for freedom, and they were ready to fight for it again, this time on their own soil. In 1948, President Harry Truman made a bold move. He signed Executive Order 9981, beginning the process of desegregating the U.S. military. It was a direct result of years of pressure from black leaders like A. Philip Randolph, who had threatened mass protests if change didn't come. Randolph had seen what black soldiers were capable of, and he refused to let their sacrifices be ignored. He and other civil rights leaders knew that desegregation in the military was just the beginning. The post-war years set the stage for a much larger movement. The fight for equality shifted into the courtrooms, the streets, and the classrooms. Organizations like the NAACP and CORE fought legal battles, challenging segregation in schools, workplaces, and public spaces. The experiences of war had changed them. African American soldiers were no longer willing to accept second-class citizenship. They had fought for freedom overseas, putting their lives on the line in battles that shaped the course of history. Yet, when they returned home, they found themselves once again facing discrimination, segregation, and unequal treatment. But this time, they refused to accept the status quo. They had proven their bravery on the battlefield, and they were ready to fight for their rights again, this time on their own soil. For decades, black leaders had been pushing for change, demanding that the country live up to its founding ideals of freedom and equality. In 1948, President Harry Truman made a bold move that would become a turning point in American history. He signed Executive Order 9981, beginning the process of desegregating the U.S. military. It was a direct result of years of relentless pressure from civil rights activists like A. Philip Randolph, a man who had spent his life advocating for racial justice. Randolph had made it clear, if change didn't come, mass protests and demonstrations would force the government to take action. Randolph had seen firsthand what black soldiers were capable of, their courage, discipline, and sacrifices for a country that still denied them full rights. He refused to let their contributions be forgotten. He and other civil rights leaders understood that military desegregation was just the first step. True equality required dismantling segregation in every aspect of American life. The post-war years set the stage for a much larger movement, one that would transform the nation. The fight for civil rights expanded beyond military bases and into courtrooms, city streets, and classrooms. Organizations like the NAACP and CORE fought legal battles, challenging segregation in schools, workplaces, and public spaces. The transition from World War II to the Civil Rights Movement wasn't immediate, it was a series of pivotal moments. Let's take a look at how history unfolded. 1941, the U.S. enters WWII. Black soldiers serve in segregated units. 1948, Truman signs Executive Order 9981, beginning military desegregation. 1954, Brown v. Board of Education outlaws segregation in schools. 1955, Rosa Parks refuses to give up her seat, sparking the Montgomery bus boycott. 1964, the Civil Rights Act is signed, legally ending segregation. Every step was built on the sacrifices of those who had served in World War II, proving that their battle was never just about war, it was about freedom itself.
History is not just a story of the past. It is a lesson for the present. The courage of black soldiers in World War II helped lay the foundation for the civil rights movement, and their fight is still alive today. From voting rights to police reform, from economic justice to fair housing, the battles they fought continue in new forms. Their legacy reminds us that change is never given, it is demanded. Fought for. 1. The war abroad has ended, but the fight for equality continues. What will we do to honor their sacrifice?